Alright, so I'm Jill Peters, and I wrote a grant for a product called Cubetto last school year, and I like this product, but I'm going to talk a little bit about coding in general, and then I'll move into some of the things about Cubetto that I've really liked with the preschoolers. So coding has literacy, changeable coding in their early childhood classroom. I really believe in developmentally appropriate practices, so one of those factors is using tangibles instead of screens, and it's really helpful for those younger kids. And then about me, so that's a picture of me and my husband. I'm in my second year of a graduate degree program at UNI in instructional technology. I have a cat, and my dad and I hang out a lot. We go to Iowa State games. And then I work at Elkhorn Early Childhood School, Waterloo Schools, and that's our logo for Waterloo. And we're all about 21st century skills and global thinking. So that's a little bit about me to start us off. And why is coding important? So Code.org recently projected that by 2020, there will be 1.4 million computing jobs, but only 400,000 computer science students to fill them. So that's a huge statistic, and even the Apple guys were talking yesterday, I went to their session about coding, they're also sharing how many students there are that are not currently coding yet in American schools. So it's something to keep in mind. A lot of the research I've read, other countries are doing coding initiatives, K through 12 and sometimes pre-K through 12. So it'd be awesome to kind of be along with them. And then 2008, this is back in 2008, keep that in mind. A Pew Research survey shows that over 90% of Americans use technology to communicate at work, and 62% of Americans use the internet at their job in 2008. So by now, it is almost everybody. You can't really find a job without some kind of computer integration. For one of my research projects for this, I actually read about how some cattle farms are using technology to manage their cattle systems and things like that. So even in the farming community, with your John Deere tractors, you see tech integration everywhere. So it's super important that kids understand the importance and relevance of coding and why we're doing it. We shouldn't just do it just because it's a cool thing. So I chose to write a grant for a screen-free tangible product because I want to keep the screens limited, the screen time limited. I do have a class set of iPads. We're not on those very often because they're little kids. And then the tangible increases student engagement. That's more exciting to them. They can touch it, they can feel it, they can see the robot move in real time and in real space. It also really helps with their spatial thinking too, because it's a real thing that's happening in front of them. And they're 4 and 5. So I'm teaching preschool. I'm a preschool classroom teacher, and so I go with the Iowa Early Learning Standards. But if you're teaching kindergarten or first grade or third grade, there's also a lot of next generation science standards that this meets, as well as a lot of math standards too. So there's all sorts of things you can do with it. And even with products like this, it doesn't have to be this, but there are story books as well that can tie in a literacy component. So keep that in mind. You can kind of go anywhere with it. I'm not going to read all of those standards out loud, but it's just a really great idea to start coding early on because it does meet a lot of those standards. And then this is just a little quick video about Cubetto.
Hi, I'm Cubetto.
Turn it up a little bit.
Hi, I'm Cubetto, a friendly robot for small hands with big imaginations. When we're together, there's no screen to stare at or reading to do, and I'll help you learn computer programming through hands-on play. My blocks are code you can touch. My board is my control panel. Use the blocks to write programs that help me go from A to B. We'll visit cities, galaxies, oceans, and where we go is up to you. So what are we waiting for? I'm Cubetto. Let's play.
So there's just a little quick video about Cubetto and what it is and how it works. It's really nice because it shows the pieces are touchable and each piece is distinguishable by touch. So if you have any students that are visually impaired or anything like that, they can feel which pieces go where. So they're not just color-based, they're also physically different, each piece is. So I wrote a grant for this one just because of the fact that I researched a lot of different coding tools for early childhood, and this was the one I found that I wanted to like the most. I taught Lego League and I loved the idea of robotics, and so this was an easy way to bring robotics to little kids. It's really fun for them and me. And then how I began implementation, it was really interesting. First, I interviewed them before the project, and I found a lot of them said things like, when I said, I don't know, I asked, what is a robot? They said, I don't know. Or how do you code or program a robot, or how do you get it to move? A lot of it was, I don't know. A few students did say, mention a remote control, which I thought was impressive. I guess in this digital age, they've seen things like that. We started with the constructivist approach. I had a field student, and she just had all the kids working on it, and then she would have it in a center, as a learning center. And what they would do is they'd fill up this whole line with code pieces and push the button. And we found they weren't really connecting it to what the actual pieces did. They were just pushing it and going. And that's how little kids usually work. So that was really interesting to watch, but we really wanted them to build that connection. So we did some direct instruction as a group where we sat down around one of the mats and we put the pieces in one at a time to show them what the function of each piece was. That way they could connect it with what they're actually doing after pushing the button. So that really helped them out there. And then that was nice to be able to do that as a class and kind of go backwards a little bit. And then we were able to talk about setting a goal. Where do you want Cubeto to go? How is he going to get there? So that goal setting has been huge too with that problem solving piece. Because there are many ways to get to the pieces on the map, but you have to figure out which one is the most effective and quick and needs the fewest pieces. I've done a lot of research for this project. So one researcher talked about doing it in 4 different phases. This is obviously optional, but I didn't have this when I started this project, and so now that I have it, it'll be nice to go and start out doing it again. So they suggested starting with a verbal interview, kind of introducing how a robot works and going through some of the steps. And then they presented the rules of the tangible programming. So they took some cards, and each card had either a green arrow for straight and then left and right. And so they were able to do that. And what they noticed is instead of putting all the pieces in and then pushing the button, this really helped the students realize what the pieces actually did before tackling the programming. And then the third phase, I have not done this yet, but the authors went digital, and then they showed how the programming choices affected something in the digital world. And then the fourth phase, they executed the program. So for this one, we're executing the program far quicker. We're not going to a digital platform, although I have considered what that would look like for these little younger kids. The most digital I would go is maybe Scratch Junior, but that's an option that you can consider too. And then here's some unplugged things you can do to figure out how a robot works with kids. This one person, they had bought some Cubetos before they introduced the actual robot. They had the kids dress up as a robot and then gave it commands, which I thought was really creative and a really fun way to really demonstrate how a robot works. As long as you tell the kid you can't move without a command, it really gives them the basics of what a robot is and the fact that they have total control over it. And then another one that you can do if you want to is the Robot Turtles game. It's kind of an older game that's been around for a while, but if you want to introduce it or it's cheaper for you to buy for your school that first before you're moving on, that one kind of starts with the basics, and it's inspired by the Logo programming language, which this uses as well. So that's kind of a few options if you don't want to jump right into Cubeto. Some other products, because we shouldn't just be about the tool, although I love this one. The Coda Pillars are really great for the younger kids and for 4- and 5-year-olds if you want to do that too. And then I know some other preschool classrooms in our district have gone with other robots. So there are a lot of options out there. Just keep in mind what you feel like would work best for your school, for your students, or where you want to start with your budget. All of those things are possibilities. And I'm working with those teachers to ensure we use best practices while implementing these innovative tools. The reason for that is I feel like because it's so new and exciting and coding and robotics are kind of a newer thing in early childhood, we have to make sure we're figuring out the why and then making sure we have the rationale to explain to our leaders, and then also to make sure we can tie it in with our other academic goals, because that's what we're really looking at in education. So those are a few options that you can do besides this one. And then these are all tutorials about how the blocks work. We won't watch them, but you can watch them on your own time. These are all from the Primo Toys website. I'll just show you how the first one is the forward block, and it's really cool. It just models a really quick video of how it works. not going to play all of those for you. I will explain the function button a little bit. The function line is something I did not use last year with my preschoolers, but there's a function line at the bottom. If you put a blue piece anywhere in this coding line, that function piece is going to repeat whatever is in here. So if you put 4 function pieces, it will repeat this 4 times. So what I love about this is it loops. It's awesome. You can even do infinite loops, which is really fun for nerds like me. One time I did a presentation, I infinitely looped it, and it was just really entertaining. So they might not be able to figure that out yet, but if you're talking about a preschool through 3rd or even 4th grade program, you can loop this with them. You can teach them some of those algorithms and figure out some of those more challenging things other than just moving the robot around. So that's what's really exciting about Cubeto, is the possibilities are endless. And then this is a picture of one of my students using it, so you can see he's looking at the robot and he's got a piece in there, he's ready to go. What we did is we told them to do 1 piece at a time. There are only 4, so it was really tricky to have them do more than 1 piece at a time and hold on to the information in their head. So this year I'm really going to see how much I can get them to do the sequence and try to have that sequence then meet the goal. But you really have to build up that sequencing ability and the ability to hold on to that information. And this is a quick video.
Michael, can you show her the right spot? Where is that the right spot? Oh, it is. Okay, good. Keep going, Brooklyn. Nope, you had it. You're good. There you go. Brooklyn is trying to go to the boats. Okay, now how do you get them to move? Where's the remote control? Yep, push the button on the interface board. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to put them on that square. There you go. Okay, now we have to do Brooklyn. So Michael says you need red. Why do you think you need red, Michael? What is that? That makes you turn. So try the red one and see what happens. You remember where it goes? Michael, can you show her where it goes?
You see the fine motor skills because they have to make sure the pieces fit in the right way.
Keep trying. Some good fine motor skills. Yeah, look at the bottom so you fit it in there. There, okay, push the button, see what happens. Was that the right way? Yeah. Okay, take the red one out. Oh no, you can't put them all the way up.
So you can see it's a typical kid reaction then to go back and change it. So our rule was you had to put it back to where it ended up, and that way we would then debug the program. So I really wanted to learn that language of debugging and putting them back where it stopped. That way they weren't cheating and really following through with the coding. This is really hard to see up on the big screen, but I did have them drew a picture, and then this was before we did too much with it, but I said, what does a robot do? Write a story about a robot. A robot walks and goes beep, beep, beep. So this is kind of all kind of ways you can bring it in, and then they drew a little picture of a robot. So some good student samples, and this one's also hard to see up there, but this one is one of the forms I kind of used to see if I could get them to write down what they were doing. Not write, but at least as much as preschoolers can. So they had to draw a picture of where they started and where they ended. So they had to pick a spot on the map for both a starting point and an ending point. And then they had to attempt to draw or color the programming pieces that they used. And this was just a simple way for me to document their learning and try to get them to transfer it onto paper. I did not ask them to write in words, just draw a picture. So that one is hard to see. If you look at it on your computer later, you can see it a little bit better. And then this one is a video I have on there too. And this one is we made a map of our school and then we laid it out. And it's probably not going to let me watch it right this second unless I switch to my other account. So let me see if I can do that super quick. So this one, we created a map of our school. We did a spot of each of our classrooms and then our hallway. And so then their challenge was to try to get Cubeto to move down through the school. So it really brought in some of those geography skills because they had to think about where the parks were in our school. And we built this map as a class, and then they were trying to move them around.
Good work. Now what do you have to do? So we're using Cubeto with the map that we made of our school. She picked a classroom. She wanted Cubeto to roll to. Very good. Did you make it? Yeah, is he on there? Yeah.
So that's just one idea of something you can do with Cubeto and with making your own maps. I've seen other teachers that have made different maps with Cubeto that drew in literacy skills. They put the alphabet on a map and then they had them navigate to different letters. You could do letter sounds, like have Cubeto go to the letter sound that goes B, which letter goes B, things like that. So that's just one idea I've seen on Twitter of teachers using Cubeto and integrating some more of those skills, which has been awesome. And then my final interviews and observations showed some of these things. They gained general knowledge about how robotics works, as in they need someone to program them. And then they knew how to work the basic programming pieces of turn right, turn left, and move forward. We did not get to that function piece because that adds in a whole lot of abstract thinking, which probably might not come into play until maybe kindergarten or first grade, especially late kindergarten. And then students knew the robot would not move forward unless their programming pieces placed in the correct spot. So that was a lot of the experience of if they put it in the wrong spot and push the button, the robot would not go anywhere. So knowing that they had to do it in the right order and in the right spot was really important too. And they knew they had to push the button. And then the math skills were really awesome to see as well. They could tell like on the map what looked like mountains. They could tell what the compass was by the end of the unit, which was awesome. There's one of those teaching strategies, gold. I don't know if you guys are in the pre-K world, but that map, some of those geography skills are tougher to get documentation for. So this is a really good way to kind of do that and get them to make those connections. So I love the map features that you can do with this. And then some things I want to work on for this school year, this is my second year with Cubeto and with using it in the classroom, is I really want to think about how I can get them to use more than one piece at a time. That was something that was a big challenge for us. And then I'm thinking about how I can integrate Cubeto into other parts of our day and other content areas. And then one challenge was, how do you set up a group of kids and make it a cooperative learning group? And now I know how to do that with our center-based things, but I really wanted to do it where they each had roles and had a job while working with Cubeto, so I could really set each group up in a session and have them know what their job was. And I really want to work on doing that a little bit more. And then, can students apply what they've learned in a digital platform like Scratch Junior? So I'd be really interested around April to see if I could pull out Scratch Junior and how difficult or easy would they transfer some of that programming knowledge to that kind of platform. I think that was. Yep, so now I want to give you guys a little bit of time to kind of just play with Cubeto because it's really fun. And I'll kind of show you the basic components. You kind of saw them up there, but you have your programming interface board. You have your programming pieces. So green is going to be your straight piece. You have your red for your right turn, and then your yellow for your left turn. These are all in here. And then there's also the blue function piece that you can use to tell it what to do on the function line. And what I like about this one, I got the educational map, so because of that, I got an extra maps that they can use too. And each map, like this one, comes with a book from Primo Toys, and you can read through it. It has a lot of good stuff. This one talks about the wonders of ancient Egypt. You can bring in a lot of those social skills, social studies, things like that. And then this also gives them a lot of challenges, like send Cubeto to the northeasternmost square with the hieroglyphics on it. Now, obviously, you want to do a lot of teaching before introducing that. But their basic book 0 starts out a lot simpler. And this is another one I really like because I've always struggled with that one objective and goal where it's getting students to use a book for a purpose instead of just using it for fun. So once I started Cubeto and I had this book out, I had kids almost every day going to get this book to figure out how to work Cubeto, which was awesome because they're using resources and I don't have to guide them on every single thing. So this one just gives them a whole, overall picture of what to do. with visuals, which is really huge at this age. And then obviously kind of read through some of this too. And what else I like about Cubetto is it only moves 1 square per forward command. So it's really defined and it really only goes where you tell it to go, which is nice because it's not going off of the map unless you program it incorrectly. So this kind of shows all of those things. And then in Cubetto's first day, the first book that you can do with the first map, it goes through some really basic challenges just to teach them how to use the product first. So you guys can come on up and play. Turn them on. Any questions?
What is all included in one of, like, so do you have the educational kit?
Yes, so I got this. This whole set was included.
Okay.
And then with these books.
Okay.
And then I got this. This is the first map that you get. So without the educational pack, you can just get like this map. And then if you get the educational pack, you get all of these along.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so even if you just get one,
Yeah.
you would get all this basic setup.
And what is the cost?
It's about $200.
For,
It is-
wow, that's pretty
yeah.
good though.
Well,
I mean,
for one.
for one, okay.
Yeah, so I wrote a grant, and then for 6, it was a little bit
Right,
discounted.
right. So you had 6 different kits?
Yes.
So
6 different kits.
6 different kits. So you have 6 of all of this?
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, which has been really awesome. And I think Cubetto is contracted to sell with Borders, so I think
Oh,
it
okay.
might be coming down now that they can sell in the
Right,
States.
right.
So they're based in the UK. So we got this all shipped from overseas.
I've seen it in, we have a private school that's also in Cary that I've seen, my daughter goes to their preschool, and I know one of their STEM days they had it out. I don't know if they've gotten it out yet, but when I saw it on the thing, I was like, oh, I wanted it, because I just happened to see it at that STEM day, and I think that day they just had kids like, they didn't really do any teaching with it, they just allowed them to kind of play with it like us.
Yes, yes.
And so I wondered if they would get it out during the year and like just kind of what it was about, but it would also make a really cool Christmas gift for kids, yeah. It's really
Even
for adults probably.
Is the board on?
Oh, where must be on?
Yeah.
So what is it, run by batteries that you replace, or is it recyclable?
Yeah, it's batteries, yeah.
It is?
So then when you created your pictures, you don't need anything like under the picture, like, because it's just the little, that you just need that
It
kind.
doesn't
Yeah.
read the,
Right.
have like an IR.
Right, yes, thank you.
It's like a-
Yeah, so you could put any of those printed off pictures and it wouldn't need anything underneath them or
Like the
anything.
Lego
extra.
Mindstorms, some
Right.
of them work
Yeah.
kind of
Right,
like that.
okay. That was a really cool tie-in, I love that idea, that was really neat.
I've seen a lot of teachers do really unique things with it. So.
Yeah, like the letters, I mean, I thought of that, that's
Yeah.
great. You could even,
Pretty much anything that you can print out and make it
Mhm.
square.
Yeah.
you can-
right.
Exactly.
It just does it have to be a certain like width and
Yeah,
just so
if you want it to be as defined as that, yep. And I mean, even if you don't want it to, you can still like
yeah,
go to there.
kids probably get, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that he goes better, like, or does it matter on carpet or hardcore,
I
or?
tend to put it on